What's good, everybody? Welcome back to Bain Break It Down Forex. It's your boy Big Bain in this thing. You guys guessed it. Another week, another opportunity for us to make some money in the Forex market. So let's get right to it. All right. Boom. Over on the dollar, guys. So last week, I did expect it to drop a little further. It didn't quite do that. It consolidated more. And then from Monday, we started to retrace a little deeper. There was liquidity sitting here right below the supply area, and we went and took out that particular swing high or liquidity. Since then, we've been respecting this area and trying to trade a little lower. All right, but with the way that things look now, especially from the 4-hour time frame, all right, we can see that break, right, the new low. All of this is the retracement. It looks like we can push up a little higher, tap this supply, maybe, get a little bit above that in this fair value gap that sits right above it, and possibly even higher, right? There's a chance that we can get just a little higher than this supply area. But again, time will tell, right? I know that Trump is speaking next week in the middle of the week, and then we have some major economic news at the end of the week on Friday. So I don't expect a whole lot of movement right out the gate for the dollar, but definitely in the middle of the week, towards the end of the week, is when we're going to get some action. All right, so for right now, definitely looking like the dollar could push up a little higher to tap supply and then drop. But let's take a quick look at it from the weekly. All right, and as it stands, we did take out the high of the previous week, right, and we closed higher. So that does indicate that we possibly want to go and take out the high that it made for this past week, that we just ended. All right, so from the daily, all right, we pretty much swept this high, and then we closed a little lower. So what we may see is price push down, right, and take that low. And when I looked at it on the 4-hour time frame, I could see this imbalance, right? But it looks like it kind of got it already. So again, it may not dip too low. Okay. All right, so we have possible sweep of yesterday or Friday's low, right? Just getting a little deeper into this fair value, and then we can rise up. There's also a tiny fair value gap right here. All right, so we can push down to that, right? And then again, possibly go and take out the weekly high, tap into supply, and then get ready to drop. All right, so the dollar's pretty mixed at this moment, because again, we can get both the drop and the rise all at the same time. So looking at it for the structure, right, we haven't really changed from up to down on this 4-hour time frame. So until we can see some sort of structural change, right, we're technically still bullish on the dollar. So I would expect it to rise up a bit, all right, before we get the drop. But like I said, time will tell. So mixed on the dollar. All right, moving over to JPY. Oh, wait, is this? I went the other way. All right, there it is. Boom, JPY. So we swept the low of Thursday, right? And Friday we ended higher. So I do expect the JPY to continue rising higher. Looking at it from the weekly time frame, all right, we can see that we closed as an inside bar to the week before it. All right, but this is a massive bullish engulfing candle that basically gave us a change of structure, right, from down to up. So this was all the retracement. So this entire week that passed was simply a retracement to that up move. All right, and we've gotten about 50% of that candle, right, maybe a little less, but it was a good retracement. And then looking at it from a lower time frame, right? Now you guys can see from that low all the way up to that high, we've gotten to the 50 Fibonacci level. And we could potentially start rising from here. Yes, we do have this imbalance to the downside that has not been tapped into. Right, so that is also on the table as a possibility for it to drop a little further down into that fair value gap before giving us some kind of structural change, right? And begin to do the rise. All right, so on the JPY index, even though I am bullish on it, I do see a potential for the drop first before we get the rise. And again, this is just how it goes, guys. Whenever you're expecting price to go in a particular direction, in this case up, it typically will fall first, right? That is the manipulation of the market. That's just how it goes. All right, gets you to think it's going one way and then reverses on you if you don't understand market structure, right? So just keep that in mind. So again, JPY, I'm expecting the drop. From there, I'll be looking to see the JPY rise. My team is very ready to sell the JPY pairs, right? The XXX JPY. So AJ, EJ, CJ, GJ, NJ, UJ, right? All the J's were ready, but we just need the JPY to break some highs, right? Once we can get that to happen, or a structural change from this pullback, right? This downward movement that it's doing right now, if we can get that to start showing us, some upward movement, then, we can definitely cash out on our JPY pairs. All right, so on the JPY for right now, guys, I am bearish temporarily, right? Just seeing it get a little deeper into this fair value gap, possibly. All right, because really it just needs to sweep the low of the week, right? And then get back in here, right? Giving some sort of change, right? Where we're breaking some significant high, which is going to be this one, right? So we can get above that high, right? We now have our change of character from down to up, and we'll probably get a pullback from that and then a continuation up, right? So just look out for that. But on the JPY index, I'm temporarily bearish, but I'm overall bullish on it. All right, moving over to odd dollar. And again, for the dollar, we can see it rise a bit, as we can see, before we get the drop. So on the odd dollar, there's a chance that we can get a bit of a drop before we get the rise, but we're still in uptrend structure on the odd dollar. Okay, and for the previous day, on Thursday, we did sweep the low and we closed higher than Thursday, so that would indicate that we want to just continue going higher. So as it stands right now, right, we filled the gap, right, and we rejected it significantly, and then we came with a nice bullish candle here that you can see on the odd dollars. So I do expect us to easily go and take out the high of last week, potentially getting up to this swing high and maybe even further on odd dollar. All right, so I'm bullish on that. All right, moving over to euro dollar, and euro dollar is textbook. All right, guys, this is what we always look for a nice trade entry. All right, we had the break of the high, we made the new high, we retraced all the way back to our point of interest, which is this demand area, and we rejected it very, very nicely. So it's even looks like tweezer tops. If you guys Google that, you can see what that's all about. But again, just candlestick patterns, right, that indicate a potential reversal, or a potential direction, right, whether up or down. In this case, because price was falling, right, this would indicate a reversal because it's rejecting demand and potentially going to rise. All right, this could have been where price was rising, and then those two tweezer tops came at the top, right, of a resistance or supply level, and that would have indicated a reversal down. All right, but these are the tattletale signs of when you know how to read the candles that can help you get paid. Right, so on the euro dollar, again, we made that new high, we retraced back, right? We didn't quite hit the man the first time, right? Because it wanted to engineer liquidity, right? Get you guys thinking that it was selling, and then all of a sudden it pushes it back up, then it pushes it back down to go and sweep that liquidity from where you bought, right? Thinking that it was ready to go. But it didn't quite mitigate that demand area. So here is the sweep on liquidity. Here is the tap into demand, and we're getting ready to take off after that. Right now, we could get like a little bit of a push down, right? We may go to take out the low of Friday before we take off, right? Or that previous week, which is the low of Friday still, right? We can take that out and then rise up to go and get to these points of interest, which are these swing points, right? The previous week high, the Friday's high, and all of these swings, 1, 2, that you see here. All right, so my team has already bought euro dollar, so we are definitely bullish, and this is a very good trade setup that will get you guys roughly 306 pips to the upside. All right, so don't miss out this week on euro dollar for the perfect bullish setup. All right, bullish on euro dollar. Over to pound dollar, it looks exactly like the euro dollar. Right, so we've definitely gotten into the demand area that we've mitigated, and I expect it to do the exact same thing that the euro is going to do. So possible sweep of the low of Friday and last week first before it rises. All right, and it's looking really good for over 400 pips to the upside, guys. I am bullish on pound dollar. All right, moving over to New Zealand dollar, and it's the same thing. My team bought it already because we got the break, came back into our point of interest, and from there we did go up, but we failed to break above the high. So that was just how things went, right? But then we got right back to that same point of interest, and we got massive wick rejection below the candle, which means the bears are getting denied, so the bulls are possibly showing up at this time. And we also swept Thursday's low significantly, and we closed higher, so we're very close to taking out Thursday's high as well as Friday's high, as we're sitting right on it right now. So that's going to be the hunt, right, in the direction that price wants to go, because it's got everything from the sell side of things. So now we're going to go and get the buy side liquidity that sits at these highs. All right, so again, my team has bought New Zealand dollar, and we're looking to catch about 119 pips off of this play. All right, so I'm bullish on New Zealand dollar. All right, and it can definitely get way higher than that, but here is a swing to the left. Just want to show you guys. Boom, like there it is. Okay, so getting in from here, over time we can reach up to about 400 pips on New Zealand dollar. So again, guys, don't miss out. The majors have good setups, right? Euro dollar and pound dollar specifically, but New Zealand dollar is not too bad of a look as well. All right, guys, so try to take advantage. Bullish on New Zealand dollar. Over to dollar CAD, and like I mentioned, I'm overall bearish on the dollar, but I do see the dollar potentially pushing up a bit before it falls. And even as I look at the dollar CAD, I do see this huge fair value gap here. Okay, all right, yes, it did kind of get tapped into previously, but it wasn't like a significant retracement into it. And then we have this high point, and this high point, where people have most likely sold from, and their stops are probably sitting somewhere within this fair value gap, maybe a little higher than where the fair value gap is. But on Thursday we swept this high of Wednesday, right, and then we closed lower. And so on Friday we were supposed to go and take out that low of Thursday. We just didn't quite do it just yet, but as you can see, we're getting massive wick rejection from Friday, rejecting the bullish pressure and telling us that the bears are in control. All right, so for that reason, my team sold dollar CAD, right, and we're expecting it to drop to, you know, one of these swing areas. All right, and on this particular play will make roughly 175 pips to the downside. All right, so bearish on dollar CAD, but again, potentially watch out for maybe a sweep of Friday's high and the previous week's high. Even this little swing high that we have here, right, we can sweep that, maybe get just a little deeper into the fair value gap and then drop. All right, so if you have your stop like we have it, right, maybe you want to place it above the fair value gap, right, or don't even, you know, worry about taking the trade for the sell until you see price get up into this fair value gap. All right, so you can do that by simply waiting for it to happen, right, set an alert to let you know when it's there, or setting a sell limit order, right, so sell limit, not stop loss. All right, setting a sell limit order at this particular price, having your stop above this wick, all right, and then having your TP down here, right, so that'll definitely get you well over maybe 200 pips or so. There it is, 325, 320 to the downside, you know, to play dollar CAD that way, right? If you haven't gotten into it yet, or like, you know, from last week like we have, right, then it's not that you've missed out, right? You can just simply give it a little bit more time to show its hand on what it wants to do before you get in. Again, guys, I said this a little earlier, but when price wants to go in a particular direction, in this case down, it will usually manipulate up first. All right, so again, this is a possibility. This doesn't happen 100% of the time, and that's something that you need to know, right? So as I'm saying that it can manipulate up and then drop, sometimes it can just drop. It won't manipulate up, it'll just drop, right? Because certain things are in line for it to do that. So you just got to be able to know how to, once again, read market structure, read candles, right, and put it all together so that you can make an educated decision where a trade is more probable to work out in your favor than, you know, than not, right? So that's what it's all about, guys. I'm bearish on dollar CAD. Right, moving over to dollar CHF, and again, dollar CHF is way more mixy, okay, but you know, it's kind of following, you know, our downtrend structure. Broke the low, made the new low. All of this was supposed to be the retracement, and again, we have another huge fair value gap that has not been touched in a deep sense. All right, we did touch it narrowly, but we didn't really get too deep into that fair value gap. So again, that is a possibility, even though on Friday we swept Thursday's high and we closed lower. So I would expect price to continue falling on dollar CHF, and as we go to a lower time frame, all right, things get to be a little clearer in terms of the structure. And what you can see is that this was a supply area, okay, right in here, and we tapped into that supply area from the previous week, right? So now, again, we could see the potential drop, but on this particular retracement, right, we're still bullish, right? So run, pull back, run, pull back. We can get another run a little deeper into that fair value gap that I mentioned before we drop, guys. So it's going to be very tricky to see how things play out on the dollar, you know, starting the week, especially when there's not a whole lot of economic news until the middle of the week. So we're going to need to be patient, and I can guarantee you, if you don't rush it, right, and you wait for the dollar and the dollar-based pairs to, you know, do what they're going to do on Monday and Tuesday, right, when Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday comes, those are going to be the days where you're going to have a clear understanding of what most likely is going to happen And those are going to be the days where you can, get into the trade and see it play out fairly quickly to make some good money. All right, so just keep that in mind. Don't rush it, right? It will come to you. All right, bearish, temporarily bullish, right, on dollar CHF, but overall bearish. Like I said, we may not get the manipulation, we may just drop. My team sold already, so let's hope we get that drop first. All right, but we'll see. So over to dollar JPY, and again, I mentioned on the JPY, I'm bullish on it, but I see it dropping potentially just a little bit more before it rises. So for something like the dollar JPY, we could see it push up a little more as the JPY falls, right? Maybe go take out this weekly high, and then we do have a bit of a supply area sitting right here. Okay, so this is a potential move that dollar JPY can make with pushing into the supply area, sweeping the high of the previous week before now coming down. And again, we don't quite have a structural change from the 4 hour, but if we go to like the 1 hour time frame, okay, now we can see something different here. Okay, and this is more convincing of a drop than a rise on dollar JPY. So let me show you guys. All right, again, uptrend structure, run, pullback, run, pullback, run, pullback, run, pullback, and then we have a nice trend line that has been broken. Okay, and then from that trend line break, guys, we had imbalance. Okay, so that's always what you want to see when you're breaking highs or lows, is imbalance that caused the break. All right, that tells you that there's heavy selling or buying in that particular area. All right, so there is our FVG. We broke below, giving us a change off the trend line, as well as breaking one of these lows that broke this high. So this is a strong break, and we can see that is a huge bearish candle that caused the break, giving us imbalance. We pull back to that, and we're sitting right in the mix of that fair value gap, so we can expect a nice drop after that, right? Because we're already in that golden zone of our Fibonacci. We're also retouching that trend line that we broke. So these are confirmations, if you will, that price wants to go lower. Okay, so I will be expecting JPY or dollar JPY to drop right out the gate, even though, like I mentioned, there is a possibility of just getting a little deeper to the upside before getting the drop. But when you look at it from this lower time frame, that possibility looks less and less. All right, that's what that's all about. So UJ, again, my team has already sold from another time of when we expected the JPY to rise, and that was on the 8th, right? So from not this week that passed, but the week before, UJ dropped over 477 pips within 3 days, right? So it was really dropping all of last week. It was just at the end of the week it kind of consolidated. So then it did its retracement, and now we're going right back to another run on dollar JPY, and it's going to be huge, guys. Getting in from here and making about 200 to 300 pips off of UJ. All right, so again, I am bullish on UJ. I'm sorry, I'm bearish on UJ, and I can see it falling for quite some time after that. All right, guys, so don't miss out. This is one of the pairs that you definitely want to trade during the New York session. All right, that will get you absolutely paid. And you can see we had a nice sweep of the high on Thursday, and we closed below. So we're definitely ready to continue falling, but watching out for the manipulation up before we get that drop, which again, I don't think we're going to get, but you never know. It's just part of the game that you have to be aware of, so that you can take advantage of what you got going on. All right, I'm bearish on dollar JPY. Moving over to pound odd. All right, here from the daily, we did break below Thursday's low. So again, I'll expect pound odd to continue falling, at least taking out Friday's low, which we're very close to doing. And if we look at this from a higher time frame, we are sitting at a bit of a support level here, right? So price most likely will dip down a little bit more. Okay, we can get this right. Here we go. So it may dip down a little bit more, tap into the support level before potentially trying to rise back up. But as it stands right now, guys, pound odd is still bearish. So I'm bearish on pound odd, just looking for it to tap demand. And then from there, I'll be looking at a lower time frame, seeing if we get any change of character from down to up to look for buying opportunities. All right, so bearish for now on pound odd. All right, pound CAD. And again, for Thursday, we didn't quite take out the low and we didn't take out the high, so we closed as an inside bar, and we really don't know what's going to happen for the next day when the market opens. But as you can see, you know, from looking left, we are definitely sitting at a bit of a support level here that price could easily start to rise from. Okay, so what we're really wanting to do in the middle of the week or during the week is look for a potential change of character, all right, from down, okay, to up, to where we can get into that buying opportunity on pound CAD, because we're, you know, again at support. And then if we get that change, that will also support the bias of price rising. Okay, so it kind of looks like we may have gotten a little bit of a change, right? Because we do have a double top here and we have this high and we broke above it, but this high did not really quite break a low. So it's not, you know, it's not clear that we have a change of character. Maybe if we go to a lower time frame, okay, now we can see that, you know, we definitely have a change, because this high broke this low and made this new low. So we played around for a bit, right? Got back to that new low, and then we pushed up, breaking that strong high again, which is, you know, pretty much right here. So that was our change of character, right? From bearish, right, to bullish. So now that we do have a change, we're just basically looking for our points of interest, and I can tell you that we have demand. Oh, not that. All right, we have demand right here in this area that price can get to. We also have a bit of a imbalance right below that. All right, so these would be our points of interest, guys, that we'll want to be looking at for potential buying opportunities. All right, and all it takes is patience, right? And $100. Check out my song if you haven't already. But here it is, getting to demand or getting to that FEG, and these are equal lows, right? So that is a form of liquidity, which a lot of traders don't take into consideration or look at or even know. So even though they've gotten into a buy from these areas, these points of interest, right, there's still possibility for a nasty sweep of liquidity, of sell side liquidity, with these equal lows, this double bottom, okay, before price rises. Okay, so if you know these things, guys, then you would set yourself up for that potentiality, right? So you'll have a buy limit somewhere below this double bottom, or you would make sure that if you bought from here or bought from here, that your stop loss is below this demand area. That way, when it does happen to do the sweep on, if it, you know, sweeps this double bottom, you're not going to get taken out because your stop loss was so tight, right? Or you put the stop loss behind the double bottom, right? You're giving yourself in the trade an opportunity to move around, right? But still keep you in the trade so that you can have it made. All right, all bars intended. Guys, pound CAD is setting up for a good buying opportunity. We just gotta wait for it to do some of the things that I mentioned as far as getting into these points of interest, and then showing us some kind of bullish candles or pressure to let us know that it's ready to go. All right, so I am bullish on pound CAD. All right, let's get back higher and move on to pound CHF. Right, so again, pound CHF, looking at it from the daily, we can see once again we're at another support level. Okay, right into it. All right, and looking left is what we do. Last time it was here, November 14th of 2025, it took off. All right, so we did the dance, we got right back here, and now we have a bit of a morning star, which again is a bullish reversal pattern. All right, and we broke above the high on Thursday and we closed higher. So price wants to continue rising, so we may get a retracement first before we get the rise. And again, that doesn't always happen, so I don't want you guys to get too caught up on that, but just understand that's just the way it goes typically, right? But it's just not 100% of the time. So looking at it on a lower time frame, once again we had a high that broke this low, right, made the new low, but then we started to push up. So we don't quite have the change of character just yet, right? So we're still bearish from where price is right now, but that's where it can go to, you know, just dip down a little bit more and then take off. But you know, the way that it's looking, it has a very good buying opportunity on it, especially if we break above this high, you know, with the candle. You can just take it as a buy, you know, off the breakout. You won't have to wait for the retest, because that is confirmation. Breaking this is confirmation that it wants to go higher. So again, like I mentioned, it may dip a little bit, but as long as you're behind that previous low, right, or any low, right, to the left, you're going to give yourself a chance for that trade to play out in your favor. All right, so we need to absolutely wait until we get some kind of break above this before we start to consider buying pound CHF. All right, but it is looking pretty good for now for a buy opportunity. All right, guys, I'm bullish. Moving over to GJ, and I think you guys may know already, you know, where I want to go with GJ. Here is where we had a change from up to down. So I'm just going to place this here so you guys can see there was that change of character, all right, where we were going up on GJ, but then all of a sudden bears came in, changed the whole structure around, and then from there we just consolidated. So we left a lot of imbalance to the upside, which for the most part, guys, is you know, where price would normally gravitate to when we're talking retracements, corrections, or pullbacks, right? All synonymous, right? So seeing price, you know, gather up in this consolidated format, it's engineering liquidity. So to me, as I see the JPY, you know, potentially just dropping a little bit more before it rises, I see GJ sweeping this built up liquidity here, right, tapping into this FVG or possibly even this one before we get a major drop. All right, so be careful just selling GJ from right now, because again, it may not work out right away, especially just opening, you know, the week on Sunday. We may see a huge liquidity sweep, right? And then come, you know, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is where we'll see that opportunity for GJ to fall. All right, so be very, very careful. Like I mentioned, selling GJ right out the gate. Let price, you know, show his hand a little bit with wherever it determines to break out of. All right, and that will suit you a lot better. All right, so I'm temporarily bullish on GJ, but I'm definitely overall bearish on it once it gets to, you know, sweeping or this fair value gap. I'm looking for a huge drop in GJ pays, ladies and gentlemen. All right, and this is the beginning of the reversal. We were up for a long time, Now we're going and we're switching to down. We made the nice run, so now we got to make the pullback, and then we'll make another run that's going to be just huge numbers on GJ. So if we're talking from that FEG down to this swing, that's over 1,000 pips on GJ. All right, and you can see from the last time that we were here, here's 800 and some odd pips, and 34 days. Here's 614 days, and let's go 7 days, we got 400. So we can easily get a good 400 pips out of the week, or out of a few days, when GJ gets to this level, and starts to make its way down. All right, so again guys, temporarily bullish, overall bearish on GJ. Pound New Zealand, right? We swept the high of Thursday, Wednesday, those 2 days, right, on Friday, and we closed lower. So it looks like it wants to continue lower, but again, we're at a major support level once again, and then we ended up getting this bullish engulfing candle. So this is all part of the retracement, if you ask me, from that change. And looking at it on a lower time frame, right, here it is, right? This is the high we needed to break, and we broke it, barely broke it, but we did break it. So now we have this huge imbalance left that we can potentially dip into, all right, before we get that major rise on New Zealand. All right, and we do have a bit of a inverse head and shoulders on top of that, guys. This is textbook bullish reversal pattern, inverse head and shoulders. So we're looking for it to again break this neckline, right, of the head and shoulders, but it may dip first, right, maybe even take out the weekly low before starting to rise. So watch out for something like this. But if we don't get the dip and we happen to break above this area, then it's probably safe to go ahead and buy, but just make sure that your stop is below here. All right, and that's how you want to play New Zealand. All right guys, moving over to silver. All right, the one that everybody wants to know about, because silver is ready to take off to the moon. All right, my team caught it, right? This is what we do. All right, so rock with me if you're trying to get jiggy. Okay, we clearly broke super higher than Thursday, right, and we ended up at this particular swing. So with that, right, when we look at it on a lower time frame, it did create a lot of imbalance with that push up. So price could absolutely retrace to any one of these fair value gaps that it created before it takes off again. Okay, but like I told you guys, it's not always like that, right? It doesn't always retrace and take off. Sometimes, right, it just takes off. You get what I'm saying? So even when we look at the past, right, price dropped, right, and it created an imbalance here, it created an imbalance here, right, it created an imbalance here, but the imbalance that is up here and up here, they were never, price never came back to them, right? Price just continued to drop. So there is a possibility of that happening to the upside. We can just forget about retracing and just keep rising, possibly going and fill the imbalances to the downside that we never filled before, right? It can be that type of party, right? And then who knows, maybe eventually, if we break above here, maybe we'll come back. If we break above here, maybe we'll come back. But there's so much tension regarding war, with Iran and all this other stuff that, people are, it's driving traders and investors way more, and institutions to the safe haven assets of silver and gold. So when the week begins, guys, we can just see silver absolutely explode, getting back up to these all-time highs and really getting people paid. All right, so I was saying all that to say I'm bullish on silver, watching out for the retracement, possibly in the beginning of the week, right? But if it does that, then you just simply want to have yourself an order just like this, right? And then here's another fair value gap right below that. So, you know, how do you want to go about playing it is what it really boils down to. And again, if you're wanting to buy, then you want to get in from the lowest price point that you can, right? So this is one of those things where, again, we haven't really quite made a high yet. So like if we try to use Fibonacci from the low to the high, look where Fibonacci lines up, right? It lines up in this area with this fair value gap. So once again, you know, it'll retrace down possibly and then start to rise up. But if you didn't get a chance to be a part of this push up, you definitely want to wait before you buy silver. You don't want to buy it this high, right? You just got to have some patience, right? Because like I mentioned, it may push up a little more, right, before it comes back and gets to these areas and then goes up again, right? So, you know, if you missed out, just know that it's not forever that you won't be able to participate in buying silver. You just need to be patient to wait for price to drop, right, so that you can get in at a lower price and then take it up for the buy. All right, but I'm definitely super bullish on silver, and I think we're heading to the moon this week. All right, so get in where you fit in. Over to gold, same exact thing, guys. So looking at it from the daily now, if I can type. All right, boom, here we are. Guys, look at that candle on Friday, right? We waited all week. So Monday, did a little dip on Tuesday, rose up on Wednesday, a little bit on Thursday, but big time on Friday. And that Friday candle took out the high of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, as well as some of the, you know, days previously. So this is a very tattletale sign that gold wants to continue rising higher. Again, my team has bought already from the low, right? As price was dropping, we bought it there, and we're now in major profits on gold. So we're at this swing point right now, right? This is a swing high. Okay, so we can tap into that and potentially start retracing right before we get another push up. And the best way to kind of determine that, once again, is going to a lower time frame. Okay, so now we can get to see things a lot more clear in terms of market structure. All right, so we can see that we just had a nasty push up, right? Hardly any imbalance just yet that I can see. So for the most part, we can just blast through this without having any sort of retracement, because there is no point of interest that has, you know, that's been printed. All right, now I do know that there's liquidity behind this trend line here. All right, like that. Also see this FEG right here sitting right below that trend line. Okay, and then we have another FEG that's right here that it looks like it kind of, you know, gotten tapped into. But, you know, if you're looking to buy gold, but you missed out on it, then maybe you want to wait. Well, I know you want to wait until it gets to these areas, right? Potentially for your buying opportunity, right? Before, you know, it goes to the moon. All right. So, you know, hopefully for those who haven't been able to take advantage of gold, it gives you some sort of dip so that you can get in at that lower price and, you know, be a part of the party. But I just have a feeling that we're not going to get that. The way that it moved up on Friday was extremely tattletelling on the fact that it wants to go, right? It's ready, you know, after it made its correction, right? We slowly but surely started creeping our way back up, and we're going to get right back to those all-time highs on gold at 5,600. And it could be way sooner than later, but I'm expecting an explosive move this week on gold. So obviously I'm bullish. All right, moving over to natural gas. Same thing on natural gas, guys. Looking at it from the daily is going to tell the story. All right, there it is. A change, right? We broke structure, right? Broke this high, made the new high, and we had all of this retracement. Again, I gave you guys this play on the fact that natural gas could keep dropping to our points of interest, which was this fair value gap in this demand area. We're now sitting right in that demand area. Okay, very perfectly. And then on on Friday, we swept the high of Thursday, and we closed, we closed a little high. It looks like we swept the low as well. So we swept the low in the high of Thursday, but the key is that we're in this demand area, right? So as long as we swept the low and we're closing higher, there's now potential for us to continue rising higher, and we have so much imbalance to the upside to fill, right? And again, this is also a part of what will typically rise when we have things going on with war talk. All right, so from this demand area, guys, we have a great buying opportunity, right? Putting your stop behind demand, bringing it up to this particular high on natural gas, and that's all she wrote. All right, so very, very, very good opportunity on natural gas for a buy. All right, just get in where you fit in. All right, I'm bullish on natural gas. Okay, over to crude oil, and my team is bullish, right? But on Friday we just swept the high of Thursday, and we're starting to retrace, right? So as we retrace, we got about 50% of that candle, and then we closed higher. So as much as I would like to think that price wants to go and fill this fair value gap, right, we've already gotten what we need to continue rising from this higher time frame. So if we look at it on the lower time frame, okay, and a lot of imbalance, but for now we can definitely just start to push up out of here on oil and continue rising. Okay, so what we want is to see a break, right? If we can get a break above here, then go ahead and take the breakout trade on that for it to just continue rising. But until then, watch out for the manipulation. Like I keep telling you guys, we know it wants to go high, so typically it'll sweep the lows and then go higher. All right, but I'm still bullish on oil. All right, over to SPY. All right, and I'm bullish on SPY. It's going to break it down from a higher time frame. Okay, on the daily, so we broke Thursday's high, and it looks like maybe Wednesday's as well, but mainly Thursday. So we want to continue rising, but this is a little tricky because we're sitting at a bit of a break level right here. So we had this massive drop, and then we've retraced back a good amount of that drop. So we could actually drop right on SPY, but looking at it from a lower time frame, I can see that we have this supply area here that we can reach up into before we get that drop. So that's why we're still kind of bullish. Again, all of these highs have liquidity sitting behind them, so that's why we're aiming for that area for our TP right before we can potentially get a drop on SPY. But for now, guys, still bullish, and we do have a bit of imbalance that we created from last week. So I know I sound like a broken record, but if we expect it to go higher, it will typically go lower first and then go and do the dance. All right, so for SPY, I am bullish, but I'm watching out for a little bit of a dip before we rise up, and then when we get here, I'm looking for SPY to start to fall. All right, bullish on SPY. All right, NAS, same exact thing. All right, so taking it from the daily once again, we can see we broke above Thursday, right? And we're kind of sitting in this, bit of a zone, right? It could be, it's not necessarily supply because we didn't break any lows, but it is a lower high, right? From all of this that we have here that we kind of back into. So when we look at it on a lower time frame, right, you can see there's that supply area here, and then again some imbalance, higher liquidity here, imbalance there, right, and supply there. So there is potential, right, for NAS to just continue rising, to these points of interest, right, the liquidity engineered, and then the imbalance here, as well as just some of these swings. So that's why we're bullish, right? But again, we created a little bit of imbalance right here. So there is potential to tap into that before we start to rise, right? It's not a guarantee, right? It can just blast off. But these are things that you want to take into consideration if you have not gotten into this trade for a buy just yet. Buy it lower and not higher unless it just breaks above, right, out of here. Then go ahead and look for your buying. You could take it then, but still make sure that your stop is below that FEG, so that even though it pushes, you won't get got and get taken out of the trade and then see it head in your direction, right? It's the pain of most traders, what they experience when they just don't know what they need to know. All right, but I'm trying to lace you guys up. Please take advantage. Bullish on NAS. Last but not least, US 30. All right, let's tidy this up and bring it on home. Okay, so on the, what are we on the 4 hours? So over to the daily, and again, what we can see is that we had this major consolidation, broke above that, made the new high, and all of this was the retracement. So US 30 showed us that it was bullish here off that strong move. We found a new high, and then we retraced back into our points of interest. All of the wicks below the candles mean the bears were denied and the bulls are starting to show up. So we didn't really quite break the high or the low, or we did sweep the low and we closed higher. So that does mean that we want to go higher on US 30, possibly taking out that weekly high, maybe getting up to the swing high up here. All right, but looking at it on a lower time frame will give us more information, right? Huge imbalance. All right, we didn't really even get deep enough into it, but like I said, as it stands right now, guys, a lot of consolidation, so it's very hard to pick a side. But like I said, because of all of the wick rejection here, right, guys, I'm wanting to see price push up higher to this potential swing, this potential supply, before there's any talks of it dropping. Okay, so again, for those reasons, especially breaking above the high on Thursday, telling me that it wants to go higher, I will be looking for US 30 to push, right? I don't see any imbalance right now, but like I said, plenty of rejection of bears, strong move up for ending the week, and then potential to take out the weekly high as well as the swing high to the left. And we're talking good amount of points on US 30, almost 800 to 900. All right, so that'll do it, guys. All right, y'all know what we got this week, and it is very sweet, and I hope you guys take advantage. Did my best to break this down. It seems like it's my longest watch list for now, right? But I just want to lace you guys up because I know times are hard. Everybody's trying to figure out what it is that they're going to do, how they're going to survive, and I'm just trying to give that that leeway, or that way of you having something that is in your control, right, that could really change your situation. So make sure to tap in with me, forexwithbain.com. Click on the link to join the Discord, and see you guys on the inside. All right, in the meantime, in between time, y'all know what it is. It's your boy. Peace.
Want to get money? Want to get paid? Master Forex, like a sensei? Then you know you got to come and swing my way. And if you want to fast forward here, replay.